going to try and start fairly promptly today. So look, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me today. I'm trusting that you can all see the first slide, and I've got somebody on helping me with this. So hopefully, somebody's going to wave a flag if you can't. I'll kind of go through this presentation, and there's an opportunity. There should be like a little sort of speech bubble questions box that you can click on, and you can type in questions, and we'll just kind of hold all the questions until the end just to make sure I get through the subject matter, and then I'll cover them off at the end, and hopefully I won't make a hash of it, and I'll certainly invite the opportunity for more questions at the end as well. So yeah, again, thanks again for taking the time to listen to me. For the sake of a quick introduction who I am, my name's Richard Abrams. I'm the Technical and Comms CTO at Kik. Prior to that, I ran an MSP for 25 years prior to selling to Kik in 2022. And so a lot of stuff I'm going to talk to you about today, I've been talking to customers about for most of my career, albeit that things have developed over time. And so I've got a keen interest. I am a sort of self-confessed geek. I've got a keen interest in the subject matter, and and I've been fairly instrumental in creating some of these services, and hopefully you'll find some value in the conversation. So I'm going to cover a number of things. There might be a few of you that have been on previous presentations with Kik, and so the first thing I will talk about is to give a quick overview of the company, but I will make it sort of mercifully quick, so we're not sort of bogged down in in a history of Kik ICT, but I will cover that at kind of high level. I'm going to talk about what co-managed services are, why you should adopt them within your business. I'm going to do an overview of what our co-managed offerings are and how they might fit into your IT environments. And we're going to specifically deep dive in on cybersecurity, because a number of our managed services are based around that. And so there's a bit to unpick, which I'd like to kind of touch on. And then finally, a future roadmap. So we've got some things in the pipeline that I kind of want to talk about. And there's some things that are kind of co-managed services that we haven't really built out as offerings. I kind of want to cover those as well to see if you've got a kind of holistic view of everything that we can offer. So the about Kik part. Kik are a leading IT provider in the UK. Our ambition for this financial year is £31.5 million of turnover. We're a leading Microsoft solutions partner with a host of other certifications with a kind of large breadth of skills and technologies. We've got 163 employees, mainly based here at our head office in Bells Hill, but a few scattered around the UK. And most of those people are charged with delivering professional services, technical services, support that we're going to touch on. And we offer those services to over 1,000 customers across the UK. We don't target any specific verticals or size. So we've got a lot in SME in the broadest sense of that. So small, medium enterprise size customers. And we have some larger enterprises as well. We also have a very heady mix of public and private sector and different verticals from manufacturing, hospitality, finance, legal. We're touching lots of different industries, and we might touch on that a little bit as we go through. Kik themselves, founded in late 2014, and a company that's been very much acquisition based on a lot of mergers and acquisitions over 9 in total over 8 years, and fairly aggressive growth plans. And that's been very beneficial, because one thing that Kik are very specialised in is retaining sort of key talent. So there's this sort of 40 years of collective experience from the organisations that Kik have bought over their 10 years. And it started off with acquiring a business called Talon in 2015, and then they quickly bought a number of businesses, largely in the kind of apps and finance arena initially. So Microsoft Dynamics and a product called Navision and Pegasus accounts. I think we'll touch on that in a moment. And then they bought a bit of a David versus Goliath. They bought a much larger firm called Castle Computer Services in 2018. It was very much sort of tech focused. And that kind of then led to a number of others that sort of between those two arenas. So Cloud Solutions, which was a comms-based company, Turnkey, which had a mix of apps and comms. And I'm going to be a very big honourable mention to my business, Consilium, that was acquired in 2022. And Consilium, I'll blow our trumpet a little bit. We're a bit more bit more enterprise focused in terms, you know, sort of a lot of niche Microsoft consultancy and support services, very much core tech. And then finally, most recently, a company called C2 in 2023. So we've retained a lot of talent. A lot of the average tenure of the, certainly in the one of the tech consulting teams I look at, the vast majority of those consultants have 10, 15 years of experience working with me and working within Kick and working within consulting, some of them considerably longer. I mean, as I say myself, I've been doing this for coming on 30 years now. And how that kind of splits up in the business and how the business is organised. And we're nearly at the end of the About Kick bit, so I did say we'd get through it fairly quickly. We have divisions that look after Microsoft Dynamics. So just to touch on what that is, that's Dynamics 365 and the platform of products that fall within that. So that includes CRM, customer management. We have a membership management platform, which is our own sort of IP built around that. We have Business Central, which is an ERP package, Power Platform, and that Microsoft Dynamics is very much an umbrella that covers a lot of different technologies, and we're across all of that. We've developed quite a lot of our own IP for different verticals, and we have a number of bespoke and sort of off-the-shelf solutions that we can offer. We then have a division called Infor, which is a mix of, I think it was legacy called Sun Accounts, Pegasus, and Infor, which is another type of finance system / ERP, and that's focused towards, we have very specific use cases. So housing associations are particularly vertical, where we do a lot of business. That's very popular in that sector. So Dynamics and Infor are kind of the areas that would kind of form apps, I suppose. And then there's the three where I'm much more directly involved, which are IT services, communications, and Kick Secure. I kind of, from a CTO perspective, I oversee those. So IT services is some of which we're going to talk about today and co-managed, but it's consultancy, everything from digital transformation to cloud, to Microsoft 365, app packaging, networking, you name it. You know, we cover that within IT services, and quite a lot of the co-managed stuff falls under that. In comms, we do a lot of things you would typically expect, lease lines, broadbands, telephony solutions, which is kind of mixed with IT services to a large extent, particularly now, just the level of Teams integration, contact center solutions, Wi-Fi, networking, firewalls. There's very much a kind of co-symbiotic relationship between IT services and communications. And Kick Secure, which is our sort of dedicated cybersecurity division, a number of our co-managed services are centered around that, which I don't want to steal the thunder of that right now, but everything cybersecurity related, managed services and sort of consultancy in that division. So that is the About Kick. As I should talk on, no, actually, I lied, there's two more. A brief sample of organizations that we work with. This one's just a list of non-profits. But just to say, we have a broad reach. As I said, 1,000 customers across all kinds of verticals and all kinds of sizes, not just within Scotland, but also in the UK at large. And accreditations, the stamp of approval that says that we're good at what we do. And to that end, we're one of very few businesses that has all 6 of the Microsoft Gold competencies. So business applications, infrastructure in Azure, digital and app innovation, security, data and AI, and modern work. So we've got the full set, which again puts us in a very sort of small club of partners that can do that. And we have a number of other sort of key accreditations, partner accreditations that are worth mentioning. So Infor I mentioned before. There's a few that aren't on here. Veritas and Cohesity, Veeam, Citrix, VMware, our Gamma Global Partner. There's numerous, but very, very highly certified company. And some of that is we've got a couple of key standards that we've also achieved. We're Cyber Essentials assessors. We help people go through Cyber Essentials, but we're also Cyber Essentials Plus certified as a business. And we also have ISO 27001, so a high degree of competency around our own organisation and our information security and how we go about conducting ourselves, and we want to practice what we preach with customers. So there you go, 10 minutes and we'll get into the meat of what we want to talk about today, which is co-managed services. So what are co-managed services? Well, we provide end-to-end support for lots of customers. So that can be everything from dealing with first, second and third line calls to device management, and sort of everything in between. But there's a lot of companies that have their own internal teams and they don't want to outsource everything. They want to have a collaboration with a provider. So our co-managed services are a means by which we can not only offer ancillary services to customers that have our kind of end-to-end support, but we can offer sort of collaborative services where we become a kind of fit into your jigsaw. And that's useful in a way because you can augment your teams to access our skills. We can provide you with sort of a flexible sort of list of services that will allow you to add capacity and specialist knowledge when you need it. It's very elastic, it's scalable, so you can add services in and take services out and very much develop something that feels bespoke to your business. Now they are packaged, but there's an element of bespokeness to them, which we'll talk about, but they're just that by selecting the things from the sort of a la carte menu rather than just a big bundle, you can choose the things that best support your business. And that will give you this sort of, this coverage, this strategic guidance, security, monitoring, compliance that gives you more than the kind of sum of your parts. And what that allows you to do is to kind of free your teams to think about the things that they should be doing. So, for people who are IT managers who are on this call, you've probably got a lot of knowledge, particularly if I'm sure you've got a lot of subject matter expertise, but probably not, and you can't be across everything. So there's probably some things you're more specialized things in, some things you're less specialized in. You probably have a unique knowledge of your business and your organization in a way that we might not. But one thing you might have is a list of tasks that are, say, repetitive and time consuming. They may or may not be intellectually demanding to one level or another, but they're maybe not the best use of your time because you've got other things you want to think about. You may indeed have gaps in your knowledge where you need a high degree of expertise and it's far too expensive to resource that internally, where you want to lean on a company who can provide select expertise in different subject matter areas. So we want to let your own selves and your teams concentrate on the things that are important to you and let us contribute towards that and maybe take away some of the heavy lifting on some of the things that you'd rather outsource or give to somebody else. So it gives you the best of both worlds, where you've got some internal ownership, some external expertise, and which I can try to demonstrate in this Venn diagram that we created. So just give me an idea, client IT team, yourselves, maybe you're thinking about digital transformation. Maybe that's, we want to get rid of our servers and go to the cloud, or we want to do more with SharePoint and OneDrive. Maybe it's cloud migrations. We want to move our line of business applications to SaaS. Maybe it's modern workplace. Maybe we're thinking about Intune and Autopilot and how we manage devices and how we get to Windows 11, how we use Teams better. Maybe it's innovation. Maybe it's artificial intelligence. Maybe it's how we use Copilot and ChatGPT. And maybe it's moonshots. Moonshots are these kind of large projects that we talk about, these big ambitions that we never get around, where we could be completely transforming an end-to-end process within your business. And these are the things that client IT teams maybe want to concentrate on. Look, by all means, I manage a consulting team who love to get involved in all of that. I love to get involved in all of that. So, I will talk to you all day long about helping with any of those things. Particularly, I'm passionate about AI. Some of you might have heard me talk about that before. I'm passionate about all these things, digital transformation, cloud, you name it. On the other side, we've got some of the co-managed services that we've developed. Some of them are the stuff that lets you sleep at night. Cybersecurity, it could be, you need a mechanism for sort of ad hoc project work, small piece of the work that you need done, like an overflow. You need patching. We're going to get into the individual services. I don't want to labor on them uniquely at the moment because we'll go through them one by one in a moment. But the point being that we're creating this framework where, again, it's the sum of the parts. The shared value between what you do and what we do will just make you stronger and make your IT function stronger and more resilient to holidays and sickness, more resilient to changes in your needs and your staff. And it'll just give you that comfort that somebody else who's got a large team who's kind of got your back. If we talk about the money side of it, so again, I've been doing this since the 90s. What used to happen and what still happens is we have this sort of bumpiness, these sort of lumps and bumps of sort of CapEx spends, peaks and troughs. We were making heavy investments and upgrades. And I won't denigrate public sector. I'm going to use public sector as an example of things that I've seen in some circumstances, just a caveat, because I don't want to tar public sector at all. They perform a very important service. But what I've seen over the years in public sector is you get a budget for the year. And the budget's never enough, right? There's never enough money to do the things that they want to do. So the moonshots kind of give way. They can't really get on with those, or they kind of get stuck because they can't achieve the things that they want. So they can flounder a little bit. Maybe that's an unfair term, but they don't achieve their goals. And then they get towards the end of the financial year and they're kind of left with a glut of money. And so the public sector, very different to private sector, often you have to spend all of the budget to get the budget again or to get more. So what ends up happening is they end up spending a lot in the last few months, and then sometimes they don't spend it as well as they could. They don't get the best bang for their buck. It's lumpy and bumpy, and there's these large spends, and it feels difficult to manage and difficult to predict. It's difficult for finance, it's difficult for IT, it's difficult for third parties, it's difficult all around. I don't think it's quite the same in private sector, but there are very similar challenges that maybe some of you will recognise. When I think about co-managed IT, when I think about how services have moved, even if we take it outside of work, everything now is a subscription. You've got your Netflix and Sky and your mobile phone contract. Everything has moved to this sort of subscription model, and IT is largely migrating in that direction, has been for years. So whether that's Microsoft 365 or Azure hosting, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason for the vendors because it's sticky. I mean, to be clear about that, but there's definitely a reason for the customer. And the reasons for the customer is it's much more budget friendly. You can do from a finance team, the spend is predictable over time. So you're not having to constantly chase for the bump, for the hardware, for the refresh for this particular thing, or constant funding for this sort of moonshot project. You can kind of have these services over time that are predictable and budgeted. And because they're elastic, but they're elastic in a much more gradual way, where the graph can incline or decline, but you've not got this sort of peaks and troughs. So the outcome of that is you get sort of more financial stability, easier planning, and more to the point, you might get access to things that you couldn't afford otherwise. So you might need a gazillion pounds to get this tool that you might need or achieve this particular thing, but it's just out of reach within that budget. But if you do it on a co-managed basis, where say KIC have access to those tools and those enterprise grade services, that you can attain the benefits of those without having to invest all the money yourselves in a kind of this sort of lumpy capex way. So I'm going to talk through the different services that we offer. I'm not going to talk about commercials. I didn't really want this WebEx to be a sales pitch. Invariably, I'm going to talk about what the services are, but I want to talk about it in the context to get you thinking about what you do in your own, in your own roles, the things that you might, KIC might be able to do for you that will help you achieve more with less. Before I go into the individuals, there's one that's not on it, and I will touch on some other ones later, but KIC standard managed support service covers first, second, and third line support. Users can log calls, we look after devices, we do RMM, and some of this first one has been where we've kind of it's like a deconstructed meal. We've taken some of the component parts of that and split out, and we haven't specifically split out user support because generally you buy that as a kind of end-to-end. But I suppose the point I want to make is that we can talk about that, but it's not a package service today. But the one part of it that we have separated out, which we've come across in quite a few instances, is where companies have, and you've got an IT team and you're dealing with the users, but there's some parts of that are quite difficult. And one of those is how you look after PCs. You might have Intune, you think, well, Intune's doing a service for us, or we're doing, or more basic than that, we've got Windows updates running. And there's a few things to say about that. Well, one is that how well managed is it? How are you checking it? Is it in a good place? Is it a pain? And we can take that pain away, and we can do a bit more. So we do a bit more than just patching the operating system. We roll out an RMM, a remote monitoring and patching agent on the machines. And we can do a lot for you. We can patch the operating system, which you're doing at the moment, with a very granular control on how you want that to happen, and we'll monitor whether the patches are happening, compliance, and provide reporting. But we can also patch, at the moment, on this platform, 100 sort of standardized applications. Now, currently there's a new version of the product coming out. It's going to reach to 300 applications. So we'll not only be patching your operating system, but we'll be patching a lot of the commonly used apps, whether that's Chrome, Adobe, Java, lots of other applications, lots of applications that are material to your cybersecurity, to your ability to get cyber essentials. So we'll be thinking about that. More than that, we're monitoring. So whilst this isn't like a user can log a call support service, it's a subset of that. So A will give you access to the platform, so you get an asset register and you can look at the things on it and get reporting on your devices and your assets and your software. And we've also got some self-healing capabilities. So for example, if a machine's running out of disk space, we've got tools that will automatically try and delete temporary files and clear up space for you. We can automate some deployment of some sort of core applications, like if you've got our antivirus, we can have that rolled out through this tool. It gives you secure remote access to manage PCs as well. And it's a shared platform, so we run it and we do these things for you, but we give you access to it. So you get access to the asset register, the catalog. You can run your own reports. You can do look at those monitoring, artifacts and metrics, and you can remote control the PCs through our platform. So a fully managed patching RMM service. Backups. So I'll talk about cyber a lot, and I talk about cyber in terms of it being a sort of layered defenses. And the thing I'll say about this to people is that no matter what you do, and I'll run through a bunch of managed services that cover a lot of it, there's no silver bullet. And ultimately, the thing that will let you sleep at night is the ability to recover, to not have to pay a ransom to some dodgy person in Bitcoin. And so what does that look like? Well, the important thing is that the backups need to be immutable and air-gapped and secure. And Kik can do that. We can take all the heavy lifting, those backups away from you. We can follow a 3-2-1 strategy. We've got your core data and on premises, copy that data and one in the cloud, or we can just go straight to cloud. We can do grandfather, father, son, or grandparent, parent, child, probably more the correct way of putting it now. You'll have sort of your 4 dailies, 4 weeklies, and 12 monthlies. And we can give you access to these portals, and we can the service, so we can do those restores for you. And we've got different layers of that service as well. So the most basic one is backup, but we have a service that not only does the backup, but it does an automated restore test, and you can even go in as like a console where you can see the successful restores and have verification that the data is restorable. There's nothing worse than a backup that you can't restore. And then at the kind of the upper tier of that, we can offer a complete disaster recovery as a service. So we'll back up to a cloud, and then we'll also replicate those workloads into Azure. So in the event that your on-prem or your other cloud hosted virtual machines go down, we can spin up those VMs. It's asynchronous, but the delta in time is quite short, and we can have them spun up so you can have sort of a business continuity plan, a DR plan. And fully managed, we're taking the pain away. You're not having to think about it. On Microsoft 365, similar but not the same, but we can back up OneDrive, Exchange, SharePoint, and Teams. It's got unlimited retention. I believe it's got a self-service portal. We can do the restores for you. It'll back up shared mailboxes, all the SharePoint data, all of it. There's a few caveats around individual one-to-one Teams messages, but by and large, we'll capture 95% of it. Some people believe that they don't have to worry about Microsoft 365 data because Microsoft are looking after it. I can tell you that's not true, because they're not not invincible. Better word, not invincible to ransomware attacks and human error. I've seen it happen a few times now where we had one client who weren't a client at the time, but somebody got a bit overzealous with a conditional access policy and managed to lock themselves out of their own tenant and couldn't get back in, and we could bring the data back quickly through that backup if they'd had it. And we've seen instances where you've deleted mailboxes, you have a leaver process, you didn't convert to a shared mailbox, and 6 months later they go back and it's out with the recoverable window, they can't restore the data, or somebody's deleted a bad leaver, deleting data maliciously. So it gives you this fallback. And we can't rule out that something can happen where Microsoft lose data. Again, particularly when we're putting more and more into email, SharePoint, OneDrive, all these things, It's to make us, again, sleep at night that we can recover. Managed firewalls, we can offer support around your firewalls. I think we can also do this for Palo Alto. We do support customers in Draytech. But in terms of managed service, what we're doing here is we're doing regular health checks of your firewalls. We're looking at the logs to see if there's anything we need to worry about. We're looking at the policies. So for Fortinet, for example, often there's subscriptions for threat prevention, URL filtering, and DNS security. We're looking at how those are configured to make sure they're optimal. We're looking at feature releases to see if there's anything else we can light up. And we're just making sure the things in root health, the firmware updates are working. They're always a source of vulnerabilities. So we're trying to make sure that they're not exposed, those vulnerabilities are not exposed, and everything's working in an optimal way. And there's a little bit of time built into it as well for small changes. So if you need to change to a rule set or tweak to VPN, there's some time allowance in there to do those small ad hoc changes in your firewalls. And then we get to a couple more that are a little bit more generic in nature, and we talked about having some of these services be bespoke. And then we're going to dive into cyber in a bit more detail and talk about some future roadmap. So consultancy as a service is a kind of very much an umbrella OpEx friendly way of consuming technical services, consultancy services across really any of the vendors for whom we're accredited and where we have a high degree of skills. So this isn't an exclusive list that's on there, but it's probably not a million miles off. But Citrix, Microsoft, VMware, Fortinet, there are probably quite a few other honorable mentions. I mentioned Palo Alto. There's other products in the Fortinet suite, Cisco. There's a whole range. But the general point being, you can have a monthly spend, you can call that time off in hours, and you can use it for anything that you want. So it could be, if you don't want a full support contract, where you don't need that sort of 1 hour sort of P1 SLA, but you do want a bank of consultants you can lean into. Should something go beyond your skill set, then we can arrange consulting time to help out with those issues. We can have those consultants work with you on ad hoc changes, PC deployments, app packaging, Microsoft 365 migrations, spinning up new virtual machines, you name it, you can use it for that. It's flexible. You can call it off with hourly increments. We can set a sizing to it that can suit your budget. It's massively OpEx friendly, so you've got it year in, year out. And so it's a good way, by stealth, I suppose, to get some small projects done without having to individually scope them and get approval each time. And we'll still follow our project management methodologies. We'll still scope them where they need scoped. And so you're still getting all that sort of good due diligence done at the front end, but you're not necessarily having to chase a purchase order every time. And then we've got Azure Consultancy as a Service, which is a kind of a similar thing, but it's aimed more at a kind of architectural level, and it's aimed specifically around Azure. So that could be health checks in your Azure environment. Often customers that are in Azure don't keep a good eye on their spend. So we're thinking about things like cost optimization on performance optimization, whether workloads can get shrunk or spun up. We can use it to think about your DR within Azure and how geo-redundant workloads, how your security posture set up, and just as a kind of a trusted set of eyes or sets of eyes that can work with you across everything from scaling to compliance to migration to DR, and in a similar way to just the regular consulting, but it's this sort of architectural level people in the mix. So let's deep dive a little bit into cyber. Cybersecurity is an interesting one, so I want to make this a bit less dry, so I've got a demo thing I'm going to show you. So we've got a range of cybersecurity services. Everybody that has support from Kik gets a service called Kik Secure Standard built in. And Kik Secure Standard, some of you may be familiar with Microsoft Secure Score. The Microsoft Secure Score is a Microsoft metric that tells you how secure your environment is. And it gives you sort of an industry standard, and it tells you recommendations and how you can make improvements. The thing about the Microsoft Secure Score is it's absolutely Microsoft centric, and it's only interested in 365. It's also very much a bit of a sales vehicle because it concentrates on things that require you to buy more Microsoft subscriptions. We're deeply interested in that Microsoft Secure Score at Kik, but we're interested in other things. So we've developed our own secure score, and we take in all of the Microsoft Secure Score stuff and a whole bunch of other metrics on top of that. So we're following the thing called CIS benchmarks. So we're thinking about things like DMARC and DKIM and your mail. We're thinking about things like your leavers and joiners. We're thinking about things like cyber awareness training, a whole bunch of metrics that form this sort of wider secure score. And I'm going to show you a little bit of the portal that we can enable for customers that are onboarded with us. So some of this you have access to, you'll have access to, and some of this is kind of our back end IP. Well, all of it's actually our IP. So we have an account, this is a demo account called KickSecure, and through being onboarded in some of our services, we get these good metrics. So we can see things like the number of accounts haven't logged on to Office 365 in over 90 days. We can see your sort of licensed accounts. We can see what services you've got lit up with Kick. That's all good in kind of back end. We can go into a kind of score history of your sort of KickSecure score, and we can see that KickSecure score over time, and we can see the changes that have been made. So we can see self-service password reset was enabled and what that did for the score. So we can see the change in the score over time and how we're working with you to improve the score. This demo client doesn't have KickSecure Premium, which we'll come on to talk about. We can see when changes have been made in our portal. We can see your Office 365 licensing over time. Many times we find that customers have lots of 365 licenses and they have leavers, but they don't decommission the licenses, so their efficiency is bad, their license management's bad, and they're throwing money away. We can see your external domains and whether they're set up properly for things like DKIM and DMARC and DMARCian, and whether their mail security is good, and we'll touch on that in a moment. And we can see this KickSecure standard report. So we can, as I said, KickSecure standard is free for customers with support, and it's a fairly nominal cost. We offer it as a standalone service, and it's fairly cheap and cheerful, and account managers can talk to you about the pricing. And within that, we can see your KickSecure score. We can see your Microsoft Secure score, and we can see that split across the different sort of Microsoft elements, apps, data, device, and identity. But what we've built out is this mixture of metrics, these CIS benchmarks that I talked about, and you can click into each section. So if I click into identity, we will actually tease out the people that have not logged in ever, or the people who have not logged in over 90 days. So, you know, one of the main attack vectors for cyber is where there's shared mailboxes that people can log into, or there's dormant accounts that nobody should be logging into that should have been decommissioned. So we'll expose that. We'll look at customers that have not registered for MFA. Maybe you've deployed multi-factor authentication, but the customers have to self-register. And so maybe you've deployed self-registration for multi-factor authentication for a user that left a year ago. And maybe that user logs into Facebook and gets their credentials stolen on the dark web. And maybe then somebody logs into Microsoft 365, your tenant, with those credentials, and they're going to get asked to sign up for multi-factor authentication. So the irony is that the hacker ends up signing up for your security solution, which is not great. So we can click through all of these different things, and we can see what's in a good place and what's in a bad place. It'll tell you how it affects your score. It'll explain to you what it is and give you a breakdown. And you can click into the areas and it'll actually take you to the relevant part of the Microsoft portal where you would make those administrative changes. And you can do that across application, across audit, all of this stuff. So that's kind of KickSecure standard. We've got a portal, we've got all the standard reporting, there's all this intelligence, all of our kind of own sort of Kick IP. And so that's very much kind of informational engine, and you know, help you to do more with your environment, increase your score, and there's some great value in that. The level up from that is KickSecure Premium. And with KickSecure Premium, we'll make all those improvements on your behalf. So we'll work through those CIS benchmarks. And I should add that we're constantly changing this. The Microsoft Secure Score static, we're just about to start rolling out, I think, a phase 2 release of this, where I think the number of things we're tracking goes up from 110 to 140. Probably got the numbers wrong. Somebody more closer to it will tell you, but we're adding a whole bunch more checks, a whole bunch more things that will affect the score, but it's more stuff that we can work on. This is organic. All this stuff is not set and forget. You have to keep working on it or your score will just slip. So we'll make those improvements month in, month out, to remediate issues, to change configuration. and we'll do more than that. We'll do vulnerability scanning. So I talked about the 100 applications or the 300 applications we'll patch, but vulnerability scanning will look at other things that are ancillary to that. It will look at exploits on potentially in firmware or other software applications, line of business applications where it's picked up that are vulnerable, where there's high degree problems, and we'll report that information to you so we can take affirmative action. We're doing this sort of manual auditing, so we'll see the signs of early signs of attack. Perhaps there's something firing up and some low-hanging thing that's firing up in your AV logs that you're not seeing, that gives you the sign that there's some command and control software, some dormant malware sitting. We'll do this advanced mail security where we'll manage your SPF and your DMARC and your DKIM to reduce the amount of spam. We'll do dark web scanning to see if people's credentials have been leaked onto the web. There's a whole host of things that are more exhaustive than this that we'll do as part of that service, again, for a fixed per month per user cost. We've got a security operations center, so it's a full SOC. So that stuff I've talked about, if we use the analogy of a house and a house's security, the KIC Secure Standards may be your home report that looks at your house and says that all the things that are good, bad, and indifferent, level 1, level 2, and things need to be repaired. KIC Secure Premium is maybe where you start to remediate some of those issues. You're fitting double glazing, putting deadlocks in your doors, you're fitting a burglar alarm, you're setting up for neighborhood watch, whatever it might be. Actually, maybe this is more neighborhood watch. But the SOC is that kind of not quite the last line of defense. I think the last line of defense is the backups we talked about. But the SOC is going to monitor your environment 24/7. It's going to look for data exfiltrating your network. And if anything happens, we've got alerts, agents across your machines. So if 24/7 we'll get a call to say something bad's happening, and you will have the ability to take all the agents off, all the PCs and endpoints and servers offline before an attack vector increases and it gets to go across your network. We'll be looking at things that look weird, and people signing in to your Microsoft 365 from foreign countries. They signed in from China, but they've also signed in from the UK. They'll be looking for those odd patterns, and so the SOC is maybe in there. It's not quite your last line, which is the backups, but that kind of alarm, that emergency service that kind of kicks in to try and to stop the worst from happening, at least stop it in its tracks. Conscious of time, so I'm going to rattle through the last of these. Cyber Essentials as a Service is your sort of government stamp, the thing you can give to your supply chain to show that everything's well heeled and in a good place. We offer that as not only just the certification, so we'll do the advisory part, we'll do the report, we'll do the remediation, we'll work with the assessor. So the assessor's giving you the government stamp. It's, maybe we're checking your homework and they're checking our homework. You've got this layered sort of quality assurance. And at the end of it, you're going to get this government approved Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus certification that is evidence that all these things that we've talked about that you're doing, and you're doing in a good way, have put your environment in good stead. But we're not just certifying, we're remediating, we're doing the report, we're working with the assessor. And again, it's a monthly spend. It can be OPEXed, so you're not having to do this sort of lumpy, bumpy investment. And DMARC and DKIM that I mentioned before in KIC Secure Premium, we have that spun out as a separate service as well. Future plans, as for the last slide, there's a number of things that aren't on there that we're still sort of developing collateral for that do exist, and there's a number of things we're bringing online. Cyber awareness training, I'd like to mention that we partner with a company called KnowBe4. I just need to get some collateral. We have collateral. I should have brought it into this demo, but we can offer end user training. So the other thing that really gets people all the time on cyber is most cyber attacks tend to be user error. So we want users to understand when they're being phished with a PH, or when they're being socially engineered, and how to have good practice. We also, as part of that, we do phishing tests. So we'll send out emails that will look like Microsoft 365 logons or common SaaS applications, and we'll try and see if users get caught. And if users get caught, we'll tell them and we'll point them towards more training. So that's the kind of like gold-plated cyber awareness training. We're also looking at bringing on a much more entry-level package that has phishing in it as well, and training. And it's probably just less variety, but it's more cost-effective. So there's that level. I'm sorry, I should say on the sort of gold-plated cyber awareness training, it has this sort of secret sauce thing called PhishER. So if somebody gets an email that they suspect is a genuine phishing attack, they can click on this button, And at the point you click on it, it will take that email at everybody's mailbox that got it at the same time. So it will put that email into triage, not just for the one user, but for the organization. And then our experts can review it and then, you know, unquarantine it if it needs to be unquarantined. And then there's a range of other services that we're looking at that we should come online in the next few months. I'll touch on a few of those. So one is, I think, called SaaS Alerts, which is a kind of subset of the SOC that will literally just look at your M365 and those things I talked about in terms of potential sort of you know, foreign entities trying to log into accounts and things that's happening in SaaS platforms that we can inform you about if we see unusual patterns in logging into the cloud. We have a sort of deeper dark web scanner that's looking across more of the internet to see if you're being attacked and whether your credentials are being stolen, which will have that as a kind of spun out service. It can stand on its own. We're going to be able to offer our own CREST approved pen tests, and not just a one and done pen test. We'll be able to offer those as sort of internal and external pen tests. So the moment you get a pen test, you pay a lot of money generally, and you get this CREST approved report at 1 year, and then you run around, or often companies run around trying to remediate issues. We can offer these pen tests in a very cost-effective way, monthly or quarterly, so you've got check-in points. So if you have, say, let's say you're funded by you know, a private equity investor, often they'll do a pen test once a year, but you can be doing pen tests quarterly or monthly and remediating issues that come, so there's no surprises. That and a few other ancillary ones that I won't touch on today. So where I want to leave this is invite any questions if you have any. I'm not seeing any pop up. I'm probably looking in the wrong place. But just to have a think about it, talk to your account managers or anybody in sales that you're talking to. I'm more than happy to have a one-to-one, and some of these we can POC and demo. We can definitely do things that are bespoke around support if you want, you know, a bundle of things, or you want some element of user support, or we can do an end-to-end wraparound where we offer you the whole kit and caboodle of everything. That's me. I'm 41 minutes in. I'm going to wish for 60 seconds to see if anything pops up, and I'll probably fill the awkward silence if it doesn't. Thank you very much. So don't see anything in the questions portal, and so I'm kind of hoping that's because I've covered everything so eloquently that there's no questions to ask, and I haven't lost my audience. But as I said, pick up with me afterwards, and by all means, I'm happy to arrange a one-to-one, talk through any of this stuff. I will just poster my other key area of interest is AI, Copilot, and ChatGPT, because I think that is a hot topic. So again, I'm keen to talk about all areas of your business, whether that's consultancy, artificial intelligence, or co-managed services. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.